Welcome to this seminar on quantum standardization in view of the upcoming technical committee in CEN CENELEC. My name is Christian Trefzger. Let me try to see if I can go to the following slide. My name is Christian Trefzger. I'm a policy officer in the Quantum Technology Unit of DG Connect of the European Commission. And I would like to address the question of why standardization is important for quantum technologies and why now. So to address this question, let me start from the very beginning of the story of quantum technologies in the European Union. The origins go back to 1999, when the European Commission was the first institution in the world launching an initiative dedicated to quantum information processing and communication called QuIC. This was under the hat of the Future and Emerging Technologies of the European Commission. And the kickoff of the initiative was in September 1999. So at the time I was in high school, but maybe some of you were present at the kickoff meeting of this activity. Then it took about, it took us 19 years for a quantum leap, in which we set up the quantum technology flagships in 2018, which was actually the very first wide-scale initiative at the European level, fully dedicated to quantum technologies. So this initiative is of 1 billion euro, expected to run over 10 years. And in the ramp-up phase, it involved about more than 2,000 European experts. So this initiative was structured in 4 pillars, so communication, computing, simulation, sensing, and metrologies. And these application areas actually structure the whole European community and also the forthcoming Joint Technical Committee at CEN CENELEC that is also structured in these 4 application areas. And the situation at the present day is as follows. You see that we have many more activities, not only the flagship. So the situation at the present day is like this one. You see that the first line is dedicated to research and innovation. So there is still the flagship, the ramp-up phase, tech demonstration phase, etc., that covers up to 2030. But you see that there are 3 other lines, namely the deployment, the manufacturing and production, and the business creation. So this line of activities, they are dedicated and fully oriented towards industry and deployment of infrastructures based on quantum technologies, indicating that the maturity of the technology is very high, so is a high technology readiness level in the European Union jargon. And essentially, the message that I would like to pass to you is that they do require a lot of standardization activities. And in what follows, I'm going to go into a bit more details in each one of these activities. The first one is the EuroQCI, Quantum Communication Infrastructure. You see on the top right of the screen a sketch of this pan-European infrastructure that connects different member states together. It will be a quantum key distribution field trials, and it will require certification of the infrastructure. So this will act as a market pool, and we already see a lot of companies coming out and offering these kind of services. It will be complemented by a space component that you'll see on the bottom right as an image with satellites that will be launched very soon. But the main message here, which concerns us today, is that this infrastructure will require a certification. That for a certification, you need standards. And it is also foreseeable that if you interconnect different member states with such an infrastructure, you can only interconnect them if you have standardized technology. Likewise, the second infrastructure, which is the one dedicated for high performance computing and in this case, quantum computing and simulation, aims at having a secure and performant, sustainable digital infrastructure with a roadmap that covers up to 2027. It includes all these participating states that you see on the bottom right, so it's a major initiative, and with a budget that is more than 7 billion euros up to 2027. And it deploys both high-performance computers and quantum computers. So you see here on the bottom left the roadmap for integration of quantum computers within the high-performance computers. And you see that the key word here is interfacing them with classical computers. And again, for interfacing these machines with classical computers, we need standards. The next slide is about quantum sensing. So I'm covering all the 4 application areas. And from the European Commission side, we have observed that quantum sensors are the most mature application of quantum technologies. And one of the priority of the Commission is to draw a path to industrialization and market uptake of these technologies. For this, we are deploying pilot lines for the fabrication, open testing and experimentation for testing these devices. And again, you see on the bottom left just a few application areas of these technologies. And of course, they require big activities in standardization. The last kid in the block that you may have heard of is the European Chips Act, which is a major initiative intended to mobilize 42 billion euros of investment, with which we would like to achieve mass manufacturable and large-scale production of quantum chips. And you see that the very first aim of this activity is to develop standardized processes for the production of quantum chips, integration of density, integrating quantum devices with control electronics, etc. In particular, for quantum technologies, the CHIPS Act for Europe will be dedicated to develop innovative design libraries for quantum chips, pilot lines, testing and experimentation facilities, and also a CHIPS fund for financing quantum startups and scale-ups, so for funding companies. What can we do from the European Commission side for standardization? So we have observed that we need standardization activities. So what we did is to include quantum technologies in 2 of the main documents, regulatory documents of the European Commission. The first one is the Annual Union Work Programme that identifies the strategic priorities for standardization, and we have included quantum as a strategic priority. And the second one is the one on the bottom, which is the rolling plan for ICT standardization, which is a more detailed and technical document, which benefits with the help of a multi-stakeholder platform, which is an external group of experts that is advising the European Commission. And the fact that quantum is included in both of these documents allows us to unlock funds for standardization activities. And this is exactly what we are intended to do. And this is my last slide. I see already the chair telling me this. And the main message that I would like to say with this slide is the last point. So we are preparing an action grant with which we are able to fund European standardization organizations like CEN and CENELEC, so that quantum can be appropriately considered as standardization activities by CEN CENELEC and the forthcoming Joint Technical Committee. So I thank you for the attention, and I'm open for questions.
Okay, just for everyone information, a question will be taken at the end. So we now move to our second speaker, Marius Loeffler from the IN. Marius, the floor is yours.
My name is Marius Loeffler, and I come from, or I'm working for DIN, which is the German Institute for Standardization. And I'm here because I'm also the secretary of the recently, or in 2020, created focus group on standardization. And I'm also the secretary of the new JTC 22. The first question is, what actually is a standard? And in my opinion, or in CEN CENELEC's opinion, a standard is an agreement on how to do something in order to be able to repeat it with the same result. And this agreement is developed by the experts of a consortium that has agreed on the relevant requirements, and they develop a document which determines characteristics, features, criteria, or attributes of products, services, processes, or systems. This is a really generic approach, but it describes the whole color of standardization, and therefore maybe it's quite useful to start with this or those information. The second one I'm going to talk about are the principles of standardization, and the main point here is standardization is open for everyone. So the first point is standardization is voluntary. That means that we, CEN CENELEC, are not forcing you to participate in this standardization work. It's completely up to you if you want to join this whole system or not. Standards are developed in a public process. That means that we always contact the public and ask for their opinion on the documents. The third one is that we try to involve all stakeholders, and which stakeholders I mean that we try to involve industry, the research, the policy, the consumer and environment protection, and so on. And we always develop those standards in a consensus-based processes. And standards are always reflect the current state of the art and should always be coherent. That means that we do not develop different standards that contradict each other. And the last one, and this is quite important, is that unlike laws, standards are not legally binding, but they become binding when they are stipulated in legislation or in a contract. Like, for example, the European Commission can make a directive and cite a standard, and then you have a legally binding standard. So we have a lot of organizations that are dealing with standardization, and on the top, we have those three international bodies, ISO, IEC, ITU. ISO is more the general standardization, IEC is the electrotechnical standardization, ITU is telecommunication standardization. And we have also this on a European level where we have CEN, CENELEC, and ETSI. Here again, CEN for general standardization, CENELEC for electrotechnical standardization, and ETSI for the telecommunication standardization. And within ISO, IEC, and CEN, CENELEC, or more precise, within CEN CENELEC, we have 43 members from 34 member states that are part of this whole CEN CENELEC system. And as you can see here, Dean, my organization, is one of these members of CEN CENELEC, and the whole process I'm going to talk about now deals with the whole CEN CENELEC ecosystem, but is also applicable to the ISO and IEC ecosystem. So just brief information that besides different organizations, you also have different types of standards. Depend on the development time, you have a different grade of consensus. And when you develop standards within a closed group of experts, you have corporate standards or consortium standards. If you open up this group to a more wide and open range, then you can develop specifications, this on a national level, a European level, or an international level. Then you have, for Germany, it's DIN spec, which means specification. On European level, it's the CEN Workshop Agreement, CWA, or the CEN TS or ISO IEC TS. And with the highest grade of consensus, you have those standards, not specifications. And here again, we have the national standards, for example, the DIN standards, or in French that are AFNOR standards. You have the European standard or the EN standards, and the ISO or IEC standards on an international level. But how does this thing actually work? And imagine that you are working, or Alice and Bob are working in a quantum corporation, and Eve and Charlie are hired in a quantum university, and you have in every country you have a national standardization body, and in this standardization body you have a national mirror committee, for example, on quantum technologies. And Alice and Bob and Eve and Charlie are all come together in this national mirror committee on quantum technologies and are doing standardization stuff there just on a national level. Then we have this CEN CENELEC JTC 22 recently established, and some dedicated working groups, for example, quantum computing or quantum metrology. Those working groups are not established yet, but they might be in the future. And now you have this delegation where, for example, Alice is interested in the work in the JTC 22 and in the working group on quantum computing. Bob, for example, is only interested in the working group quantum computing. Eve is only, Charlie is only interested in the working group on quantum metrology, and Eve is not interested in European standardization, but remains only at the National Mirror Committee. And this, here you can see those experts are delegated from the National Mirror Committee to the different groups at CEN or ISO-IC level. So, and this very briefly is the standardization process in a nutshell. You can imagine those three entities, National Mirror Committee, JTC, and Working Group are always working together. And mostly or often the National Mirror Committee formulates a new work item proposal. This is decided by the JTC. And the Working Group develops the content and produces the draft, put it back to the JTC, which starts the public inquiry process. Then it goes back to the National Mirror Committees, which formulate national opinions on this draft standards and maybe submit some comments on the current draft. They play it back to the working group. They adapt the document according to the submitted comments. And so it goes back to the JTC and again to the National Mirror Committees. And with this, I would say it's like a standardization ping pong where every committee pushes the document to another, then you develop within a time frame of maybe 1.5 or 2 years document, and afterwards the JTC decides on its final publication. So long story short, those three entities are basically responsible for National Mirror Committee is for the national opinion, the JTC is for the decision, and the working group is for the content. And all three are playing together to develop a standard in a dedicated process that is coordinated by the secretaries of the responsible working groups.
Marius, 1 minute.
Yes, I'm almost finished. So the main question is, why should you organize in a Europe or international committee? So the big benefit for ISO-IC are that the ISO and IC standards are applicable worldwide. But CEN CENELEC standards have to be adopted in those 43 member organizations and 34 member states, and national standards have to be withdrawn and current initiatives shall be stopped. That is the so-called standstill rule. So in contradiction to this, the adoption of ISO and IC standards is completely voluntary, though that might conflicting standards exist or could be developed on a national or European level. And the solution is, of course, EN ISO or ICC standards that are developed in either a CEN or CENELEC or ISO-IC JTC. So the answer to this is quite simple. You have to do both European and international. And this is going to my last slide. This is step by step how to get involved. At first, reach your national standardization body or your national committee, organize yourself in a national mirror committee, get officially delegated to the responsible JTC or working groups, and then you can start to standardize. And I guess that's it. Sorry for the...
Thank you very much. So I would first ask then, let's move fast because we are slightly late. Let's move to Nooshin Amirifar from CEN CENELEC. I ask you first, before wrestling control, to unmute yourself and
yes.
Turn on the camera.
Done. All right. So I hope you hear me well. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So I will be rather quick because I think much of it was covered by Marius, and it will be covered later on by the next speakers. So good morning, everyone. My name is Nooshin Amirifar. I am the project manager at CEN CENELEC. I'm coordinating the activities on quantum technologies here in Brussels at CEN CENELEC Management Center. should I move on to the next slide myself? Yes, thank you. So as Marius explained before, that the standardizations happen on different levels. We have the national committees or national standardization bodies. At European level, we have 3 officially recognized European standardization organizations, CEN, CENELEC, and ETSI. These are the 3 standards that have been mentioned inside the European Regulation 1025, published in 2012. It means that European Commission can request to these standardization organization to publish, to deliver standards on a specific topic or on a new piece of legislations or any other emerging, let's say, needs. There is also a subset of the European standards that can be published by CEN and CENELEC, and that's called harmonized standards. These harmonized standards are in response to those standardization requests coming from the European Commission, for example. And once these standards, they go through a different type of procedure. They have to comply with the essential requirements or safety objectives of certain directives. And once they are published, they can be offered to the European Commission to be cited in the OJ. And once they are cited in the OJ, they can be used by the manufacturer to benefit from the presumption of conformity. So this is a very important feature of these type of standards. Another important feature is that Marius explained that we have 43 members. We are a member-based organization. We have 43 members in 34 countries. And one important feature is that the European standard published by CEN and CENELEC must be adopted by all our members, the national standardization bodies or national committees. And any conflicting standards must be removed at national level. And this is the only standard that will be used. And this is very important in the support of the European single market, for example, and kind of accelerator to have access to the market. At international level, we also work CEN and CENELEC. I mentioned in the comments that we have the Frankfurt Agreement and the Vienna Agreement. We work together with ISO and IEC. It's very important that European standards, they have global market relevance, but they also comply with the European legislations, for example. And I think you can move on to the next slide, please. Yes. So at CEN and CENELEC, we work on almost every sectors that you can imagine. We have from, for example, railways, medicals, and household appliances, and so on. We also have many different business topics from the smart cities, accessibilities, and now we have also the quantum technologies added. That brings me to 450 technical committees working under CEN and CENELEC umbrellas. It brings together more than 200,000 experts. So we have access to a very big pool of experts here. And the main deliverables are standards, technical specification, technical reports, and workshop agreements. You can move on. Yes. Very difficult, but I will wrap it. So the role of European standards, we have already talked about it. So to support the European legislation, European policies, and also it comes from the need from the market. So it's very important for the European standardization system to be able to respond to what is coming up as a priority. Christian mentioned at the beginning that there are several tools, for example, annual union work program or ICT rolling plan. There are different tools that the standardization organizations at CEN and CENELEC, we need to be ready to respond. One of them was 2 years ago. You can move on to the next slide, please. That in 2 years ago, we established a focus group on quantum technologies. And this brings together many experts from different fields of quantum technologies, from research institutes, from standardization bodies together to address, to deliver one kind of deliverable, and that's a roadmap, standardization roadmap, to see where are we standing today, what are the needs, what are the opportunities, what are the gaps, and following the activities inside the CEN and CENELEC focus group on quantum. The roadmap was finalized, and I think it will be published soon. And based on the outcome of this roadmap, there was a decision to establish a joint technical committee at the European level to start the work on standardization, basically. And of course, that within this joint technical committee, we will continue the work with the international level as well. And I think if the next, I will go very quickly through this, and that CEN CENELEC joint technical committee.
2 sentences. Thank you.
Yes, it is beneficial at all stages of the technology readiness. So we can start at the very beginning to already prepare some deliverables. And that's it in a nutshell. You can ask me questions in the chat. And yeah, thank you. I think that's my last slide.
Thank you very much. Now let's move. Apologies, but it's a very tight schedule. Let's move to Nicolas Spethmann from PTB. Please, Nicolas, unmute yourself and turn on the camera, and then get control. And
yes, I hope you can hear and see.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So let's get started. So I will connect to what has been set up to now and try to give some specific information about the focus group and also, of course, about the upcoming Joint Technical Committee 22. So I'm with Physikalisch-Technische Bundesanstalt. I'm also the vice chair of the focus group that Nooshin just mentioned. So let's see how I can, okay, it's just lagging. Let me just very briefly give you some specific information. I mean, Christian Trefzger in the beginning pointed out the history of QT standardization in Europe, and the focus group was coming out of initiatives from the Flagship and also the JRC in Europe, founded in mid-2020. Has a lot of delegates and quite some number of meetings and contributions. On the left-hand side, you can see the distribution, which shows that we have participants from many different countries in Europe and also with a different background. So one important point of the focus group, which is not yet creating standards, but this is pre-standardization activity. But one important aspect was community building to bring together all those people. And I think this is a good starting point for what's coming next. And another point, of course, a deliverable is the roadmap. The first release is now on the way. And the main point of the roadmap is to identify needs and gaps for standardization and outline to some degree what needs to be standardized, when, how, and by whom. And so this will be available very soon in the form of the roadmap. Already now you can find a publication that came out of the focus group on the left-hand side of this slide here, where you can find the main ideas of consensus that we found in this focus group. To sum this up and maybe also to show how this is connected to JTC 22, so we will have this roadmap, which is a European-wide consensus document on needs of standardization. So this is important from my point of view, in some sense, to say it loosely, to have a European voice for the future also in international and worldwide coordination with standardization bodies and also with other stakeholders. The whole idea, one very important point of the focus group work was to provide overview and in the future, hopefully provide guidance. So without going into any detail, one important point here is to have a coherent framework to avoid double work. And again, details about this you can find in our publication here. And again, the idea is to help to connect and streamline coordination, current standardization efforts. So this is basically what, in a few points, what from my point of view, the main results of the focus work of the focus group are. And of course, another point was to spin off an actual standardization committee. As I said, the roadmap was about identifying needs for standardization, but not creating standards as such. And now, basically, this is moving on to the Joint Technical Committee 22, which I want to say a few words about in the following few minutes. So let's see if I can switch to the slide. There it is. So, okay, I will make this quick. So we heard about Nooshin already, the main points about CEN CENELEC. Concerning JTC 22, I want just to make a few points here. One is, if you look at the members of CEN as shown here, everything colored basically is a member of CEN. And this means basically you have a large market and a large number of people that can contribute here. And just to give you a few bullet points of the timeline, the Joint Technical Committee was proposed by Dean, that also held the secretary of the focus group. It is supported by the focus group, and what I'm going to show in the next few minutes is consensus ideas for the Joint Technical Committee. It was accepted in 2022. We now have national mirror committees, and the European kickoff will be at March 9th and 10th in Berlin. Okay, so I'm trying to switch to the next slide. There it is. Let me just give you a very rough idea about content from the proposal for JTC 22. And it's important to say this is at this point a proposal. So JTC 22 will constitute and form itself in March. But in the proposal, we basically have the main point is to establish a program of standardization deliverables. So at this point, really create standardization deliverables in QT. And this starts with enabling technologies and goes across different layers, quantum subsystems, and so on and so forth, up to applications. And the main fields are closely connected to the structure of the flagship, for instance, and cover quantum metrology, sensing, enhanced imaging, quantum computing simulation, and communication and cryptography. So this will be some idea of the working groups at this point in this proposal phase to work on standardization here, building on the ideas of the focus group. I think it's very important to say that, so we heard about European level and worldwide level on standardization. I think with this European establishment of this JTC, it will be increasingly important to have a close connection to international standardization organizations like ISO and IEC. And I think this will be a focus of the JTC 22. So the next step is how will this be implemented in the actual Joint Technical Committee? And before I come to this, maybe I can say a few words about what kind of work there can or will happen in the JTC. So first of all, we have the different layers of national, European, and international standardization. And I just wanted to make the point here that there are rules how this is going to work out. And it's very important from my point of view to have this European level here, which will be established by JTC 22. But now the question is, how will this actually happen, and how can you contribute to this? And so one thing I want you to take away from this meeting here is that if you look at the time and complexity or the effort you have to put into standardization, as is shown down here, it can start relatively easy with things that are not a fully grown standard, if you want, because of course that takes a lot of effort and a lot of coordination and discussions. But this can actually start early on with guides and best practices, workshop agreements, and then goes on to technical reports until this finally will end up in the standard. So the main message here is you can early on join by first ideas on the way to an actual standard. And I think this is very important that this discussion gets started early on. And this doesn't need to be a lot of effort. Okay, so just a very, and this is my last slide already. So how can you now contribute? Where do you come in? How does this work? And this is just a very rough idea at this point. So we have our JTC. We will have working groups in the middle in green. They might look like this. They might look slightly different. This is the proposal and the ideas from the focus group. And as Marius pointed out, there will be, or there are national mirror committees, and they are responsible for delegating experts and working with a European JTC. So if you want to participate, join your national standardization body. So this is how you can join. Talk to the people in your country from the national standardization body, ask them how to get into this. and then you can work with us on JTC 22. So if you have further questions on this, feel free to also ask me, or I dare to say also Marius, I guess, if you have questions, who to contact. And again, the kickoff meeting of the JTC 22, and also, you know, probably the handover of the focus group will be on 8th to 10th of March in Berlin. And with that, I'm finished, and I'm looking forward to discussion and questions.
Thank you very much, Nicolas. Let's move now to our two testimonials. The first one will be Florian Fröwis from IDQ and TNO Europe. Florian, please unmute yourself and let's move.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, great. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to speak here. So I'm from IDQ Europe. I'm General Manager of IDQ Europe. It was founded last year, originally by IDQ Geneva. And in a series of notarial deeds, we somehow separated the two, and IDQ Europe is now an independent company. And this was in order to fulfill our mission, which is to support Europe in securing critical infrastructure with QKD. So this is what you're working for. And for this reason, we started operations last year. We started with consulting and tech support. We built up R&D. With first Austrian projects, and we are also very active in standardization and certification of QKD. So we are a member of ASI, Austrian Standards Institute, and with this, then we can go to ISO and CEN CENELEC as discussed. We are also a member of ETSI, and this has been turned out to be very fruitful. Just 3 seconds of advertising. We have a workshop in 2 weeks in Vienna, so there are a few seats left if you want to join. Maybe you can contact me later. So why is standardization important for our organization? It's not only useful, I would say it's essential for us. And I will mention 2 points. Can I switch slides, or how this? Okay, it's just a bit slow. So first, we want to build QKD networks. We want to build this together with other organizations, and this means there will be a lot of vendors and developers present in one network, and therefore we need agreed architectures and agreed interfaces, and this is essential to build up. So what you see here is just a hands-drawn image. It's to say that QKD networks are rather complicated with QKD system itself. We have key management systems, KMS. We have users, AAS, secure application entities. We have maybe SDN controllers, and all this needs to be interfaced. So we have from ETSI, for example, 004 and 014. So these numbers refer to work items and publications for horizontal interfaces between QKD and KMS, and between KMS and the end user. We have 015 and 018, which are needed in order to make QKD networks SDN controlled. SDN is a paradigm, software-defined networking, which is very important for telecoms. We are working on 020, which is a way of interconnecting different domains of a bigger network. And this is not complete. This work is not fully done, but we're thanks to the work done at ETSI, and ETSI was here a pioneer, started over 10 years ago. Projects like OpenQKD, you might heard of, were successful because we could rely on these interfaces like 014, which is already used in production, also outside of these projects. The second very, very important point is security certification. In some use cases, which are maybe the most important today in Europe, namely use cases for governments and critical infrastructure, we need certification, and certification is based on standardization. We need standardized security proofs. We need standardized evaluation methods for the certification. We need background documents like attack classification, accepted countermeasures, and other documents where people agree for example, QKD implementation, the components in which parameter regimes they should operate, etc., etc. So this is work in progress, but we're in a very good way, and IDQ Europe will also participate via IC to the new Joint Technical Committee. Hopefully we can contribute there, and together I'm sure that in the next years we'll make this happen, and therefore enable QKD to become a valuable technology for Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Florian. Let's now move to our second testimonial. Rob on the brief from Delft Circuit. Rob, please unmute and turn on the camera.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Rob van der Brink. I work for Delft Circuits. And Delft Circuits is a company that makes hardware for quantum computing. To be more precisely, you can see it on the right with the picture. It's all kinds of microwave components that are integrated in wiring. And it's the type of wiring that is inside the fridge of a cryogenic fridge of a quantum computer. We offer this type of hardware, and we are a rapid growing startup company. We are based in the Netherlands, to be precisely in Delft, hence the name. We have been very active during the last 2 years in standardization. And we had a very good commercial reason why to do that, even for a small startup like us. Nothing happens. I want to go to, So our goal is to be a global player on the world player on the global market. Like every startup, we are going to conquer the world. We have the best product available, blah, 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 blah. That's not enough. We need more. At first, you need a global market. It's not obvious, because if a lot of people are doing something with quantum computers and a lot of people are offering products, that doesn't mean there's a global market. There's something extra that is needed to make that happen. What we need is a concept that we have called a modular quantum computer. And a supply chains of a lot of vendors that offers modules for this modular quantum computer. And modules, that means that the customer can buy modules from different vendors and that they can interwork. And that means that if they like another product better than the present one, they simply can exchange it because it can interwork. And also the interfaces of the module are well defined and can interwork with the interfaces of another company. And the realistic requirements of the modules are also important, because having ridiculous requirements is nobody going to help. And this is exactly the domain where standardization is getting very important to make this happen. And the real purpose is to have a global market so that we can sell our products. We have achieved a lot in the last 2 years, and I try to explain it with this picture. What we have achieved is a way to subdivide a quantum computer in smaller chunks. And you see here a layer model. At the top side, you see software layers. At the bottom side, you see hardware layers. And gradually it becomes more hardware if you go lower. It is a stack. It's a full stack. It's not a single stack. At the bottom side, you see multiple stacks for the different architectures. And even within an architecture, you have different flavors of all kinds of technology to make this happen. We have consensus, and it took a lot of effort to make this happen, that this is at least a good start and it can be extended. So why is this so important for a company like us? Well, here you see a module that completely fits our product portfolio. What we have achieved is that our product portfolio is now visible in a standard. It is now possible to set requirements on it in a standard. It is possible to set interfaces, etc. around it. And without it, it would be just wiring, and everybody knows what wiring is. As a spin-off, we got more. We got for free a lot of visibility. We got for free, we learned a lot of technical stuff from other people. It brought us a network of contacts and also a journal paper. We are co-authoring it. So we get free visibility for this whole stuff. We are not finished. There's work to do. And yep. So in the next 1-2 years, we consider it as very important that we get functional descriptions of the modules and the interfaces and functional requirements of the module. So not values, just a functionality description of it. And it should be published not somewhere now in an official document that is maintained by an organization that knows how to do that. That's called the standardization body. And it all shall be done in very close cooperation between vendors and customers. And this is the place where we meet them. So if products are to comply with your requirements, make sure that you join it and contribute these requirements. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rob. Now we can move to the Q&A session, which will be moderated by Wolfgang Lechner from Parity QC and Homer Papadopoulos from Syndesis. So if you have questions, please type them in the chat. Homer and Wolfgang will take care of selecting them and reading aloud. Please point out to whom you're asking this question. It's very important, otherwise we will be a bit lost. And
okay, yeah, thank you very much, and also welcome from our side. So Homer and myself are representing the working group on standardization within the QuIC. So we are the work group leaders there. I'm Wolfgang Lechner, a professor at the University of Innsbruck for physics, and also co-founder and co-CEO of Parity Quantum Computing. Maybe I hand over to Homer. Do you also want to say?
Yes, thank you. I'm Homer Papadopoulos. I'm a researcher in NCSR Democratos and the co-founder of a spin-off company of Democratos, Syndesis. We are trying to implement and integrate quantum technologies for different verticals like healthcare. To go back to the question and answering aspect, all the questions have been answered. Maybe there are some that have to be clarified. I see here that the ability to join the meeting in Berlin is somehow not clarified yet. So maybe Marius or Nooshin can comment if a company can join this meeting without first being joined the mirroring committee, the national mirroring committee. Is it able for the company to join? Is it an open or a closed? What's the process?
I think I answered in the chat. Can I take the microphone? Yes. So the kickoff meeting is basically we are going to discuss who will be the chair, what will be the next activity. So it's quite based on the internal activity of CEN CENELEC, and for joining the Joint Technical Committee or any CEN CENELEC activities, you need to be nominated via your national standardization bodies or national committees, or through our European partners, for example. If you're a member of Orgalim or APLIA or any others, so you can also join via them. Of course, once the Joint Technical Committee is established, the chair, the secretary, they can decide to have ad hoc based guests. But the general rule is that you need to be nominated as an individual expert.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, maybe let's also go through some of the questions and for completeness answer them here. So one of the first questions was about the role of IEEE, and the answer was more or less that ISO, CEN CENELEC and so on work together via the Vienna and Frankfurt agreement, and that there's no such agreement for IEEE. So maybe one question for, I don't know, on the European level or on the standardization body level, is there any plans to actually include IEEE somehow?
I can take that.
Yeah.
So for example, for the collaboration between IEC and CENELEC, it's been 30 years of agreements, so it's quite dating a very long time. With IEEE, for the time being, there is no agreement. It's not that we are closed to have this agreement, it's just a very heavy administrative work, and we need to have sufficient reasons for such an agreement. There is also a little bit of history. I'm not going to go back into it, but it's not that we are close to the idea. It's a very heavy administrative work. And compared to what we have with IEC's 30 years of collaboration, it's going to be a little bit of more yeah, we have to, it's something that is not going to be very, yeah, it has so many levels of decisions and so many actors, let's say, and areas of interest for sure.
Okay.
Okay, may we have some information about how many mirroring committees have been established until now and who will support this JTC 22? And there is another issue about UK. I assume that UK Mirror Committee will be able to join as well. To Nooshin or to Nicolas or to Marius?
For BSI, I can just say, because the UK National Committee is BSI, well, they have been also a member, they're still working with us, and I think we will continue the work. For the number of which mirror committees, I think, Marius, you have better vision probably as a secretary.
Not
No?
the exact number, but I know that there's, of course, German mirror committee. I know there's an Austrian mirror committee, a French one. I guess Italy has a mirror committee. Homer, do you know whether Greek have one?
We are discussing them. We
Okay.
initiated a big project, the LSQCI, the Quantum Communication Research Project, that we are in discussion with a lot in order to set up such kind of group here.
Okay. Then, of course, the Netherlands have one, and I know that Spain have one. And I guess also have something in the Northern European, like Denmark, I guess, have also a mirror committee. I don't know exactly, maybe you just contact them directly and ask if you're not sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then we have one question by Eric Fischer about JTC 2022. So do you have to comply to an IPR policy when you join JTC 22 as an organization?
I can take this one too.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, one of the main important topic to discuss on our kickoff meeting is exactly IPR policies. So any new work item, so to start an activity, standardization activity, to draft a deliverable, basically, we have a specific template, a new work item template. Within that new work item template, you have this box mentioning about the IPR and how you want to proceed, basically. But we do have the front, for example. There are different types of working regarding the IPR, patent policies, etc. But the important thing is that we are going, our legal manager will explain all these delicacy, basically, during the kickoff meeting. So everyone would be aware of it before starting the standardization. The guide is called, we have a guide, it's actually a legal piece of document. It's called Guide 8, which explains every IPR policy. I can copy the link in the chat if you would like to have a look.
Okay, there is a question here. Can you point me to the contact persons for Spain's mirror committee? I think, I believe this question concerns many SME companies that are not very, they are not aware of how the system of standardization is working. How to initiate and contact their mirroring committee? Nicolas or Nooshin?
Yes, you can, sorry, I'm just bringing.
Is there a list, is there a site in CEN CENELEC where they can find all these contact points?
So I think, Marius, you had a link with all the national standardization bodies, at least in the home pages. I think it's on my last slide as well, which at least gives you a link to the homepage. I think a person is quite challenging because it might depend a bit, but at least the home pages you can find. In the slides, I can try to copy at least some link into the chat now.
Okay.
Yes, this would be very helpful. Yeah. So maybe as the last question, and then we would, I think, close the session. There was one question about post cryptography and the NIST standards there. Christian, I don't know, would you like to just comment on this again?
Yes, thank you for the question. So yes, I can confirm that post-quantum cryptography is a subject that is followed closely by the European Commission because of several reasons. One of the reasons is that, for example, the method that is called crystal Kyber is one of the finalists that has been retained by the competition that is drawn by NIST. And it has been, I mean, the results that led to these methods have been extensively funded by the European Commission in the past. So we have something to say there. What I would like to point out is that this is part of a high-level dialogue that is being that is in place between the European Union and the United States on quantum technologies, and this is being discussed at the Trade and Technology Council, so EU-US Trade and Technology Council, and this is at the level of our Commissioner Breton that is being discussed. So it's really at the high level of the political agenda, and we are of course following it, and everything that is, from the impact that this may have on the European Union to the leverage that the European Union may have because it has financed in the past this kind of activities is being negotiated at the TTC.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. So we reached 11 o'clock. So I think with this, we should.
Okay. Yes. So let me wrap up the meeting. Thank you very much to everyone to all the speakers and also to all of you who have joined. The recording of the meeting will be made available to everyone. And we will advertise it on the QuiC website, on our LinkedIn, as well as probably being mirrored on the Quantum Flagship website. With this, I think it's all. I think most of you can be found on LinkedIn as well. So if people are interested in getting in touch with you, I advise them probably to reach out to you with through that mean. And with this, we can conclude the meeting. Thank you very much again. Have a nice day.